Well, hello. Welcome.
Hello,
So this is Fabian,
and this is Thomas.
and together we are
Thomas
and
and
Fabian.
Fabian.
So Fabian, it's been a year now since we were on stage in Lucerne.
Actually, 346 days, Thomas.
Okay, so it's almost been a year since we were on stage in Lucerne. And for those of you that don't know, last year we were tasked with developing Cardano Ballot. And Cardano Ballot effectively allowed the community last year to vote on awards and also on speakers.
Yeah.
And we've actually used Cardano Ballot again this year for voting on awards. And actually, the award ceremony is tomorrow at the gala. So hopefully you're all attending to see that there. Do you have your tuxedo? You don't have your tuxedo?
I have a tuxedo.
Okay, very good. So last year Cardano Ballot was a success, but we identified a number of areas that we wanted to improve the application. So Fabian, it's quiz time.
Oh no.
Do you remember the areas of Cardano Ballot we wanted to improve?
We're doing this quiz thing again.
Absolutely.
Okay. I will try to remember. So first of all, there was a lack of mobile wallet support.
That's right.
I remember this because I had a conversation right after the talk with Jaime.
Yes.
And
Jaime Caso, as you can see on screen.
yeah, that's true. And also, we had no Hydra in our stack.
Right.
There was no identity solution.
Well, we were using the stake address
Yeah.
for the identity.
No
but
proper,
you're right. No proper
identity solution. And we haven't open sourced everything,
Correct.
just parts of it.
Yeah.
The Discord flow, it was a bit cumbersome.
Well,
The
some people
verification flow,
found
yeah.
it tricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, we had to verify users. So we went the traditional route with a multi-factor through an SMS. But some of the feedback from the community was maybe we don't want to share our phone numbers with you. So we implemented a verification method using a bot that we built within the Discord channel, because a lot of the community do use Discord for various projects and various reasons, and we thought, let's leverage this technology and create a verification bot that can communicate with our voting application, can verify a user's wallet to their account, without them having to reveal any phone numbers or any potentially personally identifiable information that they weren't comfortable sharing. So this was one of the problems we had, that the Discord bot flow was a bit awkward because you had to sort of copy and
You
paste.
had to copy and then paste something in
Yeah.
Discord, and the Discord bot had to respond, and then you had to copy it again, the
Yeah.
answer, and then sign it in the application. So it was like jumping
Back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth
Yes.
with copy paste.
So there's,
The last thing.
there we go.
The last thing.
Yeah,
I think it was the vote verification.
That's
Because
right.
It was not decentralized. We had to use an external application for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So for users to verify their votes on chain, they had to use an external service to verify. And we weren't 100% comfortable with that, but we only had 2 months last year to develop Cardano Ballot, and that was the best solution we could find.
Yeah, that's true. I remember sitting in a room, and we went through all those issues, and
Yeah.
we tried to find possible solutions.
Yeah.
But then, since March this year, I never saw you again, because you get promoted to the team lead of DTIS.
Yeah.
Thomas, DTIS. What does it mean?
So, like many things within our ecosystem, it's an acronym.
Ah.
It stands for Decentralized Trust and Identity Solutions.
That's the identity stuff Cardano Foundation is working on, but you kept this quiet somehow, right?
So, yes and no. So we've been talking to a number of players within the Cardano ecosystem, but also within the wider SSI community.
SSI?
It's another acronym.
Okay.
Self-sovereign identity. So the idea here is you have control of your identity, you have control of your data, and you choose what data you share, with whom, and when. And typically this consists of a number of things, but they're typically decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials. But throughout this sort of discovery process of identity, we came across something called KERI,
Carry?
another acronym. So KERI stands for Key Event Receipt Infrastructure. And this is a sort of revolutionary identity protocol that brings additional enhancements to the existing identity tech that's in numerous ecosystems at the moment. But one of the key things about KERI itself is it has its own type of credential, and this is known as an ACDC. Not
the rock band?
Not the band.
Okay.
So ACDC is another acronym. It stands for Autonomous Chain Data Containers. And like the W3C verifiable credential, which is probably the most predominant, It has some additional functionality and features that work great for a number of use cases that have numerous parties or entities involved in a chain of activity.
Okay.
It's actually known as the chain of custody element of their verifiable credential.
Sounds great.
It's a very interesting concept.
Okay.
But what we also did was we partnered up with some of the people from the community. So some of you may know Roots ID. So we started working with Roots ID and contributed back to the Web of Trust. So what we have at the moment, open sourced, which you'll be happy about, Fabian, is we have 3 libraries. We have one called Signify, which is an edge layer client that allows you to generate private keys for your identities and store them in the hardware security module on your mobile phone. So this is a process where you're no longer encrypting and storing something in your local storage, but you're leveraging the secure enclave of the mobile device to secure your private keys. And this is an approach that's necessary for mobile wallets, but also necessary to ensure you can have your private keys, but you don't need a number of seed phrase words to retrieve them. You can attach that to a number of things. It could be as simple as your facial recognition to then access your private key, or it could be the old school way of just using your seed phrase, but you have that functionality, but you also have the security of using your hardware security module on your mobile device to keep those private keys secure. But that's at the edge. So in order to get from the edge to actually within the infrastructure itself, you need something in the cloud. So at the moment we have Carrier, which is a cloud agent that creates an encrypted channel between the edge layer and the cloud. And then from there, which is the good part really, is the Cardano aspect. So the cloud agent talks to something we built called the Cardano backer. And what this does is it takes all of your identity activities. In the Carrier ecosystem, they're known as KELs, which are key event logs. Sorry, I've lost you already, I apologize.
So many acronyms.
But what the Cardano backer does, and this is the most important part,
Okay.
is it takes these activities and it anchors them on the layer 1 blockchain. And that, in effect, has been demonstrated now in the identity wallet, which is what you haven't seen yet and no one has seen yet. So we've been building an identity wallet, and we have the first release of this identity wallet available before the end of this year.
I never saw that repository, Thomas.
You didn't?
Can you give me access to it?
I can, but everybody will have access, like I said, at the end of the year. But effectively, what this identity wallet is doing is providing a reference implementation for this carry stack that I just said, so you can get your hands on, you can experience this ID tech, and you can see how this can be utilized for your use cases or your various business logic. But we also are demonstrating the use of the traditional identity methods known as DIDs.
DIDs.
It's another acronym. DIDs are decentralized identifiers. This is the same topic that we've been discussing up until this point. But I think now we take a break, we stop talking about me, about DTIFs, about identity, because I haven't seen you since March of this year as well, and that's because you were also promoted to the team lead of EAE. So what's that?
It's the Ecosystem Architecture and Engineering team, Thomas.
And what exactly does EAE do?
You should know that. There's no excuse because we open sourced everything recently.
Right, but can you elaborate to the audience on what it is you've been doing? What are these open source projects?
Where should I start? Do you know Blockspin?
Yes, I know Blockspin.
Yeah, because it's open source.
Okay. But when you say Blockspin, you're referring to the Java Cardano clientlet built by Satya Ranjan on your team.
It's so much more, Thomas. Satya did also build Yassi.
Yassi.
It's an acronym.
Let's
for yet another chain indexer. And now with Yassi Store, we have a way to just fetch the data from the blockchain that's needed by your application. So it's a scoped indexer.
Okay, so let's explain what a scoped chain indexer is to the audience, please.
Okay, you remember the ADA handle repository that we open sourced recently?
I think many people know ADA handle, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So the ADA handle resolver, typically you would need to fetch the entire blockchain or a lot of the blockchain data, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would keep track of the changes from the ADA handle to the different wallet to then be able to resolve the wallet address by the ADA handle.
Right. So with a scoped indexer, I don't need to have an entire copy of the chain. I don't have to crawl everything. I can capture just the specific data that I need for my use case.
Yeah.
But I've also heard of Yassi Dev Kit. So I'm starting to get confused now. So we have Yassi Store and Yassi Dev Kit. So these are all built by Satya Ranjan.
That's true.
And the remainder of your team have been contributing. Yeah. But can you explain what Yassi Dev Kit is?
Yassi DevKit is something completely different. So it lets you spin up a local Cardano network. You know Ganache from the Ethereum ecosystem?
Yeah, Ganache, Truffle, yeah.
Exactly. So it lets you spin up a local Cardano network that you can use for testing, for example.
So, but why would I not just use a testnet, pre-prod?
Okay.
Why do I need Yassi DevKit?
You can use it in an automated QA pipeline, for example. So
Right.
if you want to run a pipeline on every code change, for example, then you would be able to just spin up a network in a pipeline, run through it, test your application, would be possible.
So where does the ADA, how are we funding?
So you don't need, you hang on the test ADA, right? Because on a testnet you need to get some test ADA to make it work, yeah? And with Yassi DevKit,
Which is free.
Which is free, that's true, but you would need to keep track of the test data. So if you imagine you have thousands of code changes, and you would also have the same preconditions, or you would wish to have the same preconditions on every test run.
Right.
Also for native assets, for example, you can mint them in Yassi DevKit, you can play around with them.
Right.
Test scenarios.
So the idea then here is, if you have an application and you're making changes to your code and you have a pipeline of QA tests, when it runs those tests, it will automatically fund the wallet with whatever ADA is required, mint whatever native assets exist.
You got it.
So does this also work for smart contracts? Because smart contracts and testing smart contracts is quite a challenging task at times.
Yeah, but Matti did this for Cardano Ballot this year.
That's right. Actually, we should get back to what we were talking about. So one of the things that we thought was missing from Cardano Ballot last year was Hydra. And Hydra has been featured in a number of demos and tutorials, but real-world applications on mainnet are minimal. So this year we decided, let's leverage Hydra, let's do some experimentation. So this is exactly what you're talking about with Mateusz. So Mateusz has implemented a final Hydra tally of the results from Cardano Ballot this year. And that will be released on-chain after the Summit Awards tomorrow. Because if we release it now, everyone will be able to see who is the winner. Because smart contracts on-chain, it's able to read the datums, and you would know who won, which ruins a surprise. So this is a great first step for us anyway, using Hydra on mainnet and leveraging the technology. But in this process, we've also found some issues potentially with what use cases you can use it for, and do we need to have layer 2? Do we need to have encryption? Because if we don't want to delay the access of this information on chain, then we need a way to obfuscate or protect that. So that's a fantastic point, but let's also talk about the lack of mobile wallet support and what we've done to solve for that this year.
So we thought about different solutions, and then we came up with one that is, in my mind, pretty good. So, but we don't want it to just implement it. We wanted to make a SIP out of it to prove if it works like it should work.
So the SIP being the Cardano Improvement Proposal.
Exactly.
Which is how we make changes as a community within the Cardano ecosystem.
Yeah, right. And this is SIP 45. So SIP 45 in a nutshell lets you inject an API from one browser to another. So you can inject everything, but in the case of SIP 45, you inject SIP 30. So dApps don't need to change something. They can just talk to mobile wallets as like you would talk to extensions. And one pretty cool thing is that we don't need a centralized signaling server.
Right.
So think of
peer-to-peer.
Yeah, it's peer-to-peer. So if you have a browser, I have a browser, I have a QR code, you scan the QR code. So typically you would need to have a centralized signaling server to resolve my deep IP.
Yes.
To make the WebRTC connection happen.
Yes.
Yeah? Right? And we we leverage the existing WebTorrent tracker infrastructure for that.
Like where we used to download movies and videos from back in the day?
Yeah. It's exactly like the same, but it's like you're offering a download, but there's no download, it's just to make the communication happen.
So this is not only peer-to-peer, but it's decentralized then?
It's decentralized.
That's fantastic. So we now can provide mobile support to wallets using this peer-to-peer communication channel and to connect a wallet to a dApp.
We implemented it together with the team from Eternal.
That's right.
And they announced the beta version of it, and we also put it in Cardano Ballot's application this year, right?
And this is a good point now to talk about identity. So within the Cardano ecosystem at the moment, you have some options for identity, but when it comes to connecting to a dApp and using your identity within a dApp, it's very uncommon at this point. So what is common is connecting your financial identity to a dApp and using your stake address to identify yourself. But what we can do now, and what we're working on to show in the beginning of next year, is how with SIP45 and the Cardano Foundation Identity Wallet, you can now inject your identity into a dApp. You can sign things in the dApp with your identity private keys, keeping your financial identity completely separate. And this, I think, is one of the first stages in us being able to demonstrate how in our ecosystem we can start leveraging identity tech that exists in other ecosystems and has become rather mature, how we can start demonstrating that in our ecosystem, leveraging the existing identity tech, such as Atala Prism, for example, but also demonstrating Kerry, the Kerry protocol on Cardano, as well as any other DID methods, verifiable credentials, or ACDCs.
Nice. I need to play the timekeeper, Thomas.
Where are we at? Well, that's a countdown, not a count up.
Yeah.
Okay, quickly. What we should mention, actually, because we will definitely not have time to get through all of the things we've been working on since last year. What you have on screen is a QR code here that takes you to the Discord channel. We had to create this channel last year for our verification bot, but since then it's grown, and we have quite a few members now. We have some channels in there with numerous resources that will take you out to a number of different libraries in our GitHub repository. Code written in Java, code written in Python, code written in TypeScript. We have a number of different languages there for you to get your hands on and experiment with. I think what's most important to mention as well is Cardano Ballot has grown some legs. So last year and this year for the Cardano Summit, we used a user-based voting solution. But we've been collaborating with IOG in preparation for the SIP 1694 pre-ratification events. And
what Gio was working on, right?
Exactly, yes. Gio and Robbie from your team, DevOps Operations. So,
sorry that I interrupted you with the DevOps wizard.
It's absolutely fine. So what we've implemented in Cardano Ballot now, in addition to user-based voting, is stake-based voting. And this is what's being leveraged for the SIP 1694 pre-ratification events. I think some of this information was already shared in Las Vegas previously this year. So not only are we implementing user-based and stake-based voting, but we've also completely restructured Cardano Ballot. We've modularized the back-end services, so you can run them in multiple instances. You can also review the code in a much more seamless way. We have a vote verification application, which is a completely separate utility. So anybody here today could run their own version of the vote verification app and could verify independently themselves that their votes are on-chain without relying on any centralized or even relying on our application at all to tell you that your vote's on-chain. But on top of all of this, we are now open sourcing Cardano Ballot to the community.
And the Discord bot enhancement.
And the Discord bot enhancement.
As something separate, because...
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the community will be also able to use that new Discord verification flow, just clicking that button to verify their users for their Discord project.
So we are running very quickly out of time. What I think we should list is just also a couple other topics of the things that we've done.
Yeah.
Right, so Ledger Sync.
Ledger Sync.
A quick overflow, quick overview.
Real quick overflow. So Ledger Sync also uses Yassi Store, but it needs it has a requirement to fulfill the data completeness needed by the Explorer that we also built this year.
This is the Cardano Foundation's latest iteration of the Explorer.
Beta stage, right?
So Ledger Sync is effectively like DB Sync for the Cardano Foundation Explorer?
Right, written in Java.
That's fantastic.
And
there's one more thing we're forgetting.
The rewards calculation.
Absolutely.
That we open sourced recently.
You have 30 seconds.
True. Oh, no, I will give them to you, Thomas.
Okay, I think at this point then, all we can really say is please scan the QR code or even visit the Cardano Foundation GitHub repository.
Or the booth.
Or the booth, where Fabian and I will be after this. If you want to have a look at the identity wallet, if you want to talk about identity tech, if you want to talk about any of the things we mentioned.
SIP45.
But we have 15 seconds left, and now I think it's a perfect time to just give kudos to the team. Because although we're up here talking about all of these things that apparently we've accomplished, none of it was possible without the core developer team that we have here. So from my side, I would like to say a big thank you to Jaime, Jorge, Robert, Salvatore, and Fergal. They've been instrumental in implementing everything we've said. And Fabian, you're out of time, but please.
Yeah, we're out of time. I would like to say thank you to Matti, Satya, Gio, and Roby. You did a great job.
We hope to see you all at the Desert Dining Experience this evening and at the gala tomorrow. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.